Black Waitress's son said, "I speak 9 languages." Arab billionaire CEO laughed until he was shocked. It was a glittering evening at one of the city's most prestigious 5-star hotel restaurants, a place where the wealthy and powerful gathered to enjoy fine dining and business conversations. The chandeliers glistened, the sound of cutlery echoed, and the air was filled with quiet sophistication. Among the crowd sat an Arab billionaire CEO, a man known for his arrogance and for the way he dismissed those he considered beneath him. His presence commanded attention, and his companions hung on to his every word. Working that night was Angela, a black waitress who carried herself with quiet dignity despite the long hours. She was a single mother, raising her son Marcus with every ounce of strength she had. While she moved gracefully between tables, refilling glasses and taking orders, Marcus sat quietly in a corner booth, scribbling in his notebook and finishing his homework. When Angela approached the billionaire's table with a bottle of fine wine, he smirked as his eyes followed her movements. Leaning toward his associates, he muttered a mocking comment in Arabic, certain no one around him could understand. His companions burst into laughter, while Angela simply maintained her professionalism, pretending not to notice. But Marcus heard everything. Though only a boy, his ears had been trained by years of study, and the words cut through him like a blade. He looked at the billionaire with calm but steady eyes, unwilling to let the insult slide. The billionaire noticed the boy's gaze and raised an eyebrow. With a mocking tone, he leaned back in his chair and asked, "Do you even know what language I'm speaking, boy? This is far too advanced for you." His laughter filled the air, joined again by his companions. The restaurant seemed to pause, as Marcus stood up from his chair, walked a few steps closer, and in a steady voice replied, "Actually, I speak 9 languages." The room fell silent. Forks froze midway between plates and mouths, and even Angela's breath caught in her throat. The billionaire's face lit up with disbelief, and he barked out a laugh. 9? Impossible. Then prove it." Marcus did not hesitate. He took a deep breath and, with flawless pronunciation, spoke directly to the billionaire in Arabic. Every syllable was crisp and perfect, leaving the CEO's expression stunned. Before anyone could recover, Marcus shifted effortlessly into French, then Mandarin, then Spanish. With each new language, the gasps in the restaurant grew louder. Guests leaned forward in awe, unable to believe what they were witnessing. He continued, Italian, Russian, Swahili, German, each tongue flowing from him as naturally as if he were a native speaker. Finally, he ended in perfect English, his young voice ringing with confidence as he said, "Respect is a language everyone should understand." For a moment there was only silence. Then the restaurant erupted in applause. Guests clapped, some even stood, and Angela's eyes filled with tears of pride. The billionaire, humbled beyond words, slowly rose from his chair. His arrogance had vanished, replaced by respect he had not shown anyone in years. He walked toward Angela and Marcus, bowing his head as he admitted, "Tonight, your son taught me a lesson I will never forget." That night became a story that traveled far beyond the walls of the restaurant. Marcus, the boy who spoke 9 languages, received opportunities no one could have imagined: scholarships, invitations, and recognition from leaders across the world. Angela, once underestimated, held her head higher than ever. And the billionaire. He carried with him the unforgettable reminder that true greatness is not measured by wealth, but by humility and the ability to treat others with dignity. It was a grand evening in one of the city's most prestigious restaurants, where chandeliers sparkled like diamonds above the heads of powerful men and women. At a corner table, a wealthy Arab billionaire CEO sat surrounded by his business associates, his deep voice and commanding presence drawing glances from the other guests. He was a man who carried himself with arrogance, as though the world owed him respect. That night, Angela, a hardworking black waitress, moved gracefully across the floor, balancing trays of wine and dishes, her face calm despite the exhaustion of long shifts. In a quiet corner, her young son Marcus sat with his schoolbooks, quietly, working while his mother labored. He was a sharp, observant boy, taught by his mother to stay humble, but his mind was brighter than most could imagine. When Angela approached the billionaire's table, pouring him wine with steady hands, the man smirked and leaned toward his companions. In fluent Arabic, he muttered a mocking remark about her, believing she couldn't understand. His companions chuckled, their laughter sharp and dismissive. Angela kept her composure, smiling politely as though nothing had been said. But Marcus heard the words. His small hands tightened on his notebook, his eyes narrowing with quiet defiance. Though young, he understood perfectly, for Marcus had spent years studying languages with a passion far beyond his age. The billionaire noticed, the boy staring at him, and leaned back with a mocking grin. "Do you even know what language I'm speaking, boy?" he sneered, his voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "This is far too complicated for you." His companions laughed again, their arrogance echoing through the room. The atmosphere grew tense, every ear suddenly tuned to the exchange. Slowly, Marcus stood from his seat and stepped forward. His voice, though calm, carried surprising strength as he said, "Actually, I speak 9 languages." The laughter died instantly. The room fell into silence, every guest frozen in disbelief. Angela's breath caught, her heart pounding with both pride and fear. The billionaire chuckled, certain the boy was bluffing. 9? Impossible. Then prove it, he demanded, folding his arms smugly. All eyes turned to Marcus. Some guests smirked, waiting for him to embarrass himself, but his mother gave him the smallest nod, her eyes saying, "Be brave, my son." Marcus took a steady breath. He looked directly at the billionaire and, with flawless pronunciation, replied, in Arabic, his words sharp and confident. The billionaire's smirk vanished, his eyes widening in shock. Before he could respond, Marcus shifted seamlessly into French, then into Mandarin, then into Spanish, each language flowing like music from his tongue. Gasps echoed across the restaurant, forks clattered onto plates, and even the waitstaff paused in awe. Still not finished, Marcus continued in Italian, Russian, Swahili, and German. His young voice filled the grand hall with a brilliance no one expected. Finally, he ended in perfect English, his words crisp and commanding. Respect is a language. Everyone should understand. For a long moment, silence hung in the air. Then, the entire restaurant erupted into applause. Guests stood, clapping with astonishment, while Angela's eyes brimmed with tears of pride. Marcus had not only defended her honor but had silenced arrogance with intelligence. The billionaire, once towering in his confidence, now rose to his feet slowly, his head lowered. His arrogance had dissolved, replaced with something rare, humility. He walked toward Marcus and Angela, his voice subdued as he said, "Tonight, your son has reminded me of something greater than wealth. True dignity lies in respect." That night, the story spread far beyond those golden walls. Marcus's gift opened doors to scholarships and opportunities. His name whispered with admiration. Angela, once underestimated, was now seen with new eyes as the mother of a remarkable boy. And the billionaire left with a lesson he would never forget, that no matter how rich or powerful, respect is the only language that truly matters. It was a glittering night inside one of the most elegant restaurants in the city, where powerful men and women gathered under chandeliers that shone like crystal stars. The air carried the scent of expensive wine and roasted delicacies, while quiet music floated in the background. At the center of attention sat an Arab billionaire CEO, a man feared in business circles for his arrogance and admired by his companions for his wealth. His deep voice carried across the table as he laughed with his associates, a laugh that held no kindness. Among the staff working tirelessly that night was Angela, a black waitress known for her quiet grace and professionalism. She had grown, used to the stares and the occasional dismissive remarks. But what gave her strength was knowing her young son Marcus was seated in a corner booth, quietly finishing his schoolwork. He was her pride, a boy with a mind sharper than most adults, though few would ever guess it by looking at him. As Angela approached the billionaire's table to pour wine, he leaned closer to his companions and muttered something in Arabic, a mocking remark about her as though she were invisible. The men around him chuckled, their laughter low but sharp. Angela kept her composure, refusing to let their words show on her face. What the billionaire did not realize was that Marcus, quietly listening from the corner, understood every single word. His small hands clenched his pencil tightly, his young heart steady with a resolve far beyond his years. The billionaire noticed the boy's unwavering stare and smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Do you even know what language I'm speaking, boy?" he asked loudly, his tone dripping with mockery. "This is far too complicated for someone like you." His companions laughed again, the sound carrying through the room. For a moment, it seemed the humiliation would linger in the air, but then Marcus rose from his chair and stepped forward. His voice was calm, yet every word struck with surprising strength. As he said, "Actually, I speak 9 languages." The restaurant froze. Forks hung suspended, glasses stopped midway, and a hush spread across the room. Angela felt her chest tighten, torn between fear and pride. The billionaire burst into laughter, shaking his head. 9? Impossible. Then prove it. All eyes turned to the boy, waiting for him to falter. Marcus took a deep breath and began. In flawless Arabic, he spoke directly to the billionaire, his pronunciation so perfect that the man's smile faltered. Without pause, Marcus shifted into French, his words flowing like a native speaker. Gasps rose from nearby tables as he moved on to Mandarin, then Spanish, each language delivered with ease and confidence. The atmosphere transformed. Guests leaned forward in awe, some clapping softly in disbelief. But Marcus was not finished. He continued with Italian, Russian, Swahili, and German, his voice clear and strong, leaving the room breathless. Finally, he ended in English, his gaze steady as, he declared, respect is a language everyone should understand. For a long moment, silence filled the restaurant, thick with astonishment. Then applause erupted, echoing through the grand hall. Guests rose to their feet, clapping with admiration, while Angela's eyes filled with tears, her heart swelling with pride. The billionaire, stripped of his arrogance, stood slowly and approached them. His voice, humbled and quiet, carried a truth he had long forgotten as he said, "Tonight, your son reminded me of something greater than wealth. True dignity lies in respect." That night became a story whispered far beyond the restaurant's walls. Marcus's brilliance opened doors to new opportunities, while Angela's quiet strength was finally seen for the power it had always been. And the billionaire walked away with a lesson etched deep in his memory, that no matter how rich or powerful a man may be, respect is the only language the world must truly understand. It was a dazzling evening in one of the city's finest restaurants, a place where the wealthy and influential gathered to discuss business and indulge in luxury. The chandeliers sparkled like captured stars, the music was soft, and the air carried the scent of expensive dishes and rare wines. At the grandest table sat an Arab billionaire CEO, surrounded by his business partners. He was a man used to admiration, feared in boardrooms, and often cruel in the way he spoke to those he considered beneath him. His voice carried across the room as he laughed with arrogance, and those around him joined in, eager to please him. Moving quietly among the guests was Angela, a black waitress who carried herself with dignity despite the long hours and the weight of life's burdens. She was a single mother who worked tirelessly to support her son Marcus, who sat in a corner booth that night, his books spread out in front of him as he completed his homework with focus and determination. When Angela approached the billionaire's table to pour his wine, he smirked and leaned toward his companions. In Arabic, he made a cruel remark about her, certain she could not understand him. His companions laughed loudly, their mockery echoing in the elegant hall. Angela, though stung, kept her composure, refusing to allow them the satisfaction of seeing her falter. But Marcus heard every word, and his young heart tightened with a mixture of anger and courage. For years he had immersed himself in studying languages, a gift his mother had encouraged, never knowing that one day it would become his shield. The billionaire noticed the boy's steady gaze and chuckled. "Do you even know what language I'm speaking, boy?" he asked mockingly, his tone sharp enough for others to hear. "This is far too complicated for someone like you." His table erupted in laughter, as if the humiliation was part of their entertainment. Marcus stood slowly from his chair, his small frame filled with a quiet confidence. In a clear, steady voice he replied, "Actually, I speak 9 languages." The room fell into complete silence. Forks froze in midair, and whispers rippled across the tables. Angela's breath caught as her heart pounded, torn between fear that her son might be ridiculed and pride in his boldness. The billionaire burst into laughter once more, shaking his head in disbelief. 9? Impossible. Then prove it. The challenge hung in the air as every eye turned toward the boy. Marcus drew a breath, then spoke directly to the billionaire in flawless Arabic. The words rolled smoothly, every syllable perfect. The billionaire's smile wavered. Without pause, Marcus continued in French, then Mandarin, his tone shifting effortlessly with each language. Gasps rose from the tables as he went on to Spanish, Italian, Russian, Swahili, and German, his young voice carrying across the room like music. Finally, he ended in English, his words firm and clear. "Respect is a language everyone should understand." For a moment, silence hung heavy, broken only by the sound of a glass being set down. Then applause thundered through the hall. Guests rose from their seats, clapping and cheering, some shaking their heads in astonishment. Angela's eyes filled with tears as she pressed a hand to her chest, her pride overflowing. The billionaire, stripped of his arrogance, rose slowly to his feet. He approached Marcus and Angela, his voice humbled as he admitted, "Tonight, your son has reminded me of something greater than money. True dignity comes from respect." That evening became more than just a story within those golden walls. Word of the boy who spoke 9 languages spread far and wide, opening doors to opportunities and recognition that neither Angela nor Marcus had imagined. Angela, once overlooked, was finally seen for the strength she carried every day. And the billionaire left with a lesson engraved in his heart, that no amount of wealth or power could equal the value of treating another human being with honor.